Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today we have another knife review. We're going to be looking at the Toor knives Admiral, and this is of course the collaboration that they did with Sangin instruments. The details on this particular knife, it has a 3-inch blade. It comes in at kind of a whopping 3.5 ounces. The blade steel is CPM 154. It has titanium handles, and nothing on here is proprietary. We got a Torx number 8 to do any maintenance on the knife. Before we jump into the review, I want to do a quick wrist check. Today I'm wearing the newly released Sangin Instruments Overlord. This is the DLC version that they released about a week and a half ago. All right, and similar to my other videos, first I'm going to kind of go over the pros, then I'll get into some of the cons, but wanted to give a little bit of a background on my experience with Toor knives. Obviously, this one being the collaboration piece between Toor knives and Sangin Instruments. Both companies I do have pretty substantial experience with, and with Toor knives, again, they primarily started out, they're, both Sangin and Toor are veteran-owned companies, which is really cool to support, veteran companies in the US. Toor knives was primarily known for fixed blades, and back in about 2016, I ended up picking up one of their, this is a Toor Vandal. They don't make it anymore, and this was actually kind of a custom order that I did. With that, I got my old team logo kind of etched in the side there, and when I got this, again, I had been used to Winklers, things of that nature, and I really was kind of disappointed when I got this, so much so that I actually ended up writing Connor Toor. Without getting into it too much, I thought that they didn't knock down or sand down anything in this ring right here, so it's actually very sharp. The scales, I don't know if you can see, but they really don't even line up. They had epoxied or use some kind of finish over the handles on one side, but it was missing some of it. I don't know if you can see here, like the finishing kind of just ends on the flat surface. They didn't actually get into these grooves. I thought the Cerakote job was very, very sloppy on here, and I was kind of surprised at the response that I received. It was basically, hey, we're a custom knife maker, that's custom. People actually like the, little mistakes and things of that nature, but for the amount that I paid for this, I have to say I was actually pretty disappointed, and with that, I never really carried it. Yeah, if anyone's interested in it, hit me up, but I don't know, I might kind of reach out to Toor, I think, and ask them if they want to take another stab at this thing, because I was disappointed to say the least. So fast forward to I believe this came out in 2021. They got into folders, and this one isn't actually mine. This belongs to a friend of mine, but I did borrow it, and I carried it for a little bit and wanted to give my reviews of it. All right, I'm going to jump right into the pros of this knife, because I think I do kind of cover all the pros and cons and everything that I want to say about it. The pro for me is it's definitely a cool collaboration piece. Again, on this side, you kind of have the Sangin Instruments, that arrow logo. On the other side, you have Toor Knives, which, they have a really cool logo as well. I think, like, if you are a collector, if you like Sangin Instruments and Toor Knives, this would be a good one to have. Then, it's a great question to ask. Well, then why don't I own one? I have tons of Sangin Instruments. I know about Toor Knives. Honestly, that Vandal that I just showed you, that left a really bad taste in my mouth, and just from there, when this one was released, I actually, I passed on it, and just as luck would have it, my neighbor picked it up, and I was like, oh, well, I'll give it a go just to see what it is. If I'm missing anything, I'll be able to pick one up, because these do show up for sale all the time. That fact gets me into the second pro of this knife. Sangin Instruments, they're known to sell out within minutes. They definitely have a large following. When their drops happen, everyone kind of scoops up their watches, compasses, everything, merchandise. With that, this is actually still, as of this morning, still in stock on the Sangin Instruments website. So I think that's kind of it's a pro, and it's also kind of a con. So the pro being that if you want this and you're into collaboration pieces, you can pick one of these up still. The con being, you know, it kind of makes you scratch your head and say, well, after over a year, why are these still in stock? All right, the last two pros, I'll kind of just cover all in one shot. So this is, as I mentioned, it's made in the US, which is really cool. People really like that, supporting local businesses, better known businesses, and also all the scales. So everything on here is titanium. And with that, again, yeah, that ends my pros for the Admiral. All right, I'm going to quickly cover some of the cons that I noticed just from playing around with this and comparing it to some other knives. The first con is the pocket clip size. Now, this thing, you know, it only has the one screw that kind of holds it in, which is a little bit, I don't know, it's unique, I guess I'll say. I don't know if it's a bad thing because it does have this, you know, kind of pin that keeps it in place. This is not going to be an ambi carry knife. This is right hand only. You know, you can't. Although there is the screw on the other side, there's actually a little clip that goes into the frame to keep this from rolling, I'm assuming. So, and with that, the pocket clip, again, I haven't carried it much, but it already is loose, and this thing is massive for the size of the blade. I'll kind of show you this compared to a Spyderco Delica. Again, a bigger clip, but the sense that it, you know, isn't as obtrusive, doesn't stick down as far, I would say, and the Delica is just a larger knife compared to the Benchmade Griptilian, which I think this is a good comparison for this knife. You know, about the same size clip, but again, that angle that it rises up, you really feel this thing when it's in your hand. And I think a lot of the other knives that are this size, and I'll kind of get into, let's see, this McNeese as well. This is a huge blade and a huge, you know, cutting surface here, wide knife, and it has a smaller pocket clip, less obtrusive. The handle size is definitely thicker, which makes it more comfortable to hold and use. The Toor Admiral, this is a very, very thin knife, and not in, you know, blade stock or anything in that way, but the handle is very thin for this size knife and this size pocket clip. So I just kind of noticed that carrying it a little bit, you know, when it was in my hand, I mean, I'm feeling like all clip there. And so it's very big and bulky. It is a deep carry clip, which is nice, but again, it goes past the end of the frame. I mean, this is like a knife built around a clip kind of. And that was one of my cons, or one of the things that stuck out after comparing it to other knives of similar size that I carry. All right, the next con that I noticed was actually the jimping on top here. So you might not be able to see it in the video, but this goes about a little bit less than a ½ inch into the frame, and that's not usable jimping. And I was like, man, am I crazy for thinking that, or, you know, making that a con? But looking at any other knife that I own, the jimping is always kind of flush with the frame, so everything that they do is usable. Here, there's like a step down to where the blade starts, and this jimping that's right here is not useful. It's not going to help you get a grip or anything like that. It doesn't help you when it's closed to open it or anything like that. It's just kind of a waste of jimping there. And so I look at that and I'm like, oh, well, it's a fit and finish thing then. Like they put this jimping on here, they didn't need to. And the other knives, especially at, you know, this price of being over $300 after tax and shipping, you know, I like it to be a little bit more thought out. So the jimping, kind of scratching my head a little bit with that. All right, the next con is the choil on this thing. And what I noticed right from the get-go, given this size of blade, the choil's not it's not very useful, we'll say. I think obviously, you know, holding the knife down here with your thumb up here, this is the most comfortable position to hold this knife. Again, I do have a hot spot right here where the clip kind of digs in, but other than that, like this jimping, you're kind of just losing out on blade length with that. And, you know, looking at something like a Benchmade Griptilian, they don't have the choil there, but you get more cutting surface. And I think for this size knife, I don't know, like if you're gonna do a forward choil, make it so that it's usable for doing fine work. If it's not gonna be that usable, just get rid of it, like we saw, or we see with the Griptilian. All right, the next con I wanted to cover was the price. Again, this is a collaboration piece. Sangin's kind of, you know, hype gear. I know Toor knives, when they have a release, they sell out pretty quickly as well. But the price on this, so at $295, that's without tax and shipping. I definitely think this is a more expensive knife for what it is. Again, it goes back to my old adage of fixed blade companies sticking with fixed blades, but kind of struggling with folders. And you do get that kind of half-face blades, cav folder feeling with this, that it's kind of a parts box folder. And it's kind of disappointing for the price. Although I don't really have another knife in like the $300 price point that's this size, I either have ones that are cheaper, like a Benchmade Mini Griptilian, Spyderco Delica. I do have, so made by Train 365, but the Prometheus Design Works Invictus, and you know, this one's about $50 more expensive, but you can just tell that it's much more thought out. I will get to reviewing this one at a later date, but I'm a huge fan of this one. It kind of sets the standard for me as far as that goes. You can see the frame sizes are very similar. The blade obviously is a lot bigger, but when these things are closed, they have a pretty similar profile. You know, they're definitely in the same ballpark. So this one being a little bit more expensive, but I think for the money, I would take this one all day. All right, the next con for this one for me is going to be the weight. So as I said in the beginning of the video, this one clocks in at 3.5 ounces, and it does only have a 3-inch blade, and I kind of subscribe to that, you know, 1 inch of cutting blade per ounce. And so this one's definitely over that, and you can feel it. I mean, I know it's a full titanium frame, so that's what you get, but for what it is, this is definitely a heavy knife. All right, the last con that we're going to look at is the lockup on this. And, you know, I could kind of cover the action as well. The action isn't bad for what it is. It's, you know, not great, but it is running on washers, which is good, I think, for a hard use knife. You know, you don't have any bearings, anything that could have a catastrophic failure, but at the same time, the lockup on this is really, really late. I don't know if you can see that, and this hasn't been carried too much at all, but you know, it doesn't have any sort of liner insert tab. That lockup's over 50% the travel, so you know, when I give this back to my friend, I'm definitely going to tell him to keep an eye on that. But that was right out of the box. Like, this thing's in great shape, really hasn't been carried much, and you know, he's probably had this for maybe 4 months, and you know, I don't think he uses it that hard or anything. The blade's in perfect shape, no scratches in the stonewash, but that's a very late lockup in a folder. And with that, that's going to be the end of my review of the Toor Admiral. Again, this is the Sangin Instruments collaboration. Again, I think if you're into collaborations, if you like Sangin Instruments, if you like Toor knives, you like veteran-owned companies, definitely scoop one of these up. They are still available at Sangin Instruments website, but you know, beyond that, you know, myself as a knife enthusiast and, you know, kind of getting hypercritical with folders that I carry and spend money on, I don't know. I don't feel bad that I didn't pick one up. Again, it's not like I missed the boat on it. If I wanted one, I could literally order one right now, but I'm definitely gonna be holding off. I think there's a lot better knives out there, and I know some people, you know, fanboys of Sangin Instruments or Toor will say, oh, you know, it's the best folder ever. If you think that, you're just fooling yourself. If it didn't have this logo here and this logo here, and you know, you found this knife somewhere, I don't think it would be nearly as popular. And you know, going back to the fact that it's still in stock on a website that routinely sells out in minutes, that should tell you something. So please feel free to drop any questions you might have in the comments below. You know, I'm always looking for new things, new perspectives on knives. So, you know, if you have a great experience with this, or, you know, you're trying to sell one, whatever, let me know. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.